What do I think of American society today? It's a country that keeps contradicting itself. And somehow keeps going. Walk a few blocks in any big US city and you'll see it, a swirl of languages and cuisines, a storefront with a now hiring sign taped to the glass, a line. Outside a neighborhood food pantry, a luxury condo with a for rent placard and a protest. Or parade rolling past as if the street were a stage built for arguments and celebrations. America feels like a place that runs on friction and reinvention at the same time, noisy, unruly, and remarkably resilient. What strikes me first is the density of everyday ambition. There's a lot of talk about polarization, and it's real, especially online, but if you look away from the feed and watch how people live, you see a quiet choreography of getting on with it, nurses swapping shifts, teachers coaching after school, drivers running night routes, immigrants mastering new accents while opening new businesses. Much of the social fabric isn't loud, it's the steady rhythm of neighbors solving problems at the scale of a block, a classroom, a clinic. That's the part of American society that rarely trends, yet it's the part that steadies everything else. At the same time, the country is unmistakably expensive. Housing and services weigh on people's minds in a way you can feel in small talk: rent, coworkers' moves to cheaper states, insurance premiums, childcare, juggling acts. Affordability is both an economic issue and a psychological one. Prices set the tone for whether people feel like the future is opening or closing. When the cost of a modest life tilts high, even good news, better jobs, a calmer inflation backdrop lands with a thud. You see the tension in cities that are thriving and squeezing at once: more restaurants, more cranes, more cultural energy, also longer commutes, thinner savings, roommates in their 30s who would rather be tenants or owners on their own. Civic life is complicated but not broken. Trust in institutions has been dinged sometimes, deservedly so, and the attention economy rewards the most theatrical takes. Yet the deeper pattern I notice is a kind of distributed stubbornness. Local journalists still chasing stories, librarians defending open stacks, faith communities and secular nonprofits topping up food banks, school boards arguing, yes, but also approving the unglamorous line items that keep buses running. People complain loudly and volunteer quietly. The country's loudest rooms can feel exhausted. The country's smallest rooms are doing the work. Diversity remains America's competitive edge and its most delicate conversation. Promise of the place is that you can arrive as a stranger and become a stakeholder, and that promise is renewed every time a new accent shows up behind a counter or at a campus orientation. But a diverse society is hard mode. It demands patience with unfamiliar norms, humility about one's own, and the discipline to disagree without trying to disappear each other. The better neighborhoods model this daily in small ways: shared stoops, playground negotiations, interfaith potlucks, bilingual signage that says you belong here even when the city council hasn't quite caught up. Safety and order feel different than they read online. In some downtowns you'll notice visible struggle, addiction on the margins, tents under the overpass, the fragile returns of people who have fallen through the net and are trying to climb back in. Elsewhere you'll notice parks fuller and streets calmer than they were a couple of years ago. The reality is mixed and hyperlocal. America's policing debates, public health debates, and housing debates meet on the same sidewalk. The outcomes will hinge less on slogans and more on whether cities can scale the programs that actually help without criminalizing poverty or ignoring victims. That's hard technical work, street by street, case manager by case manager, and it fits into a viral clip. Technology has rewired social space in ways Americans are still learning to live with. News is a scroll, friendship is part group chat, part algorithm, politics is a performance as much as a proposition. The upside is obvious: entrepreneurship without permission, micro-communities that find each other and flourish, cultural scenes that would have been niche now shaping the mainstream. The downside is corrosive: outrage as a hobby, loneliness behind glossy feeds, brittle identities that shatter when they leave their echo chamber. Media literacy has become more than a class buzzword, it's a civic skill like learning to drive. In my view, the communities that thrive are the ones teaching it, formally in schools and informally at kitchen tables, so people can tell the difference between information, advertising, and manipulation. Religion too is in flux, but the search for meaning is. Some Americans are switching pews for hiking trails, swapping denominations for meditation, cobbling together moral vocabularies from podcasts, therapy, and family lore. Others are staying where they started and deepening their commitment. Either way, there's a hunger for belonging that institutions ignore at their peril. The most interesting experiments I see aren't grand gestures. They're small groups that meet regularly, do something specific, cook, sing, read, repair bikes, and refuse to let difference become distance. Education remains America's long bet on itself. It's also where the culture wars show up with sharp elbows. Under the shouting, you find teachers improvising miracles, stitching together lesson plans, counseling students, navigating parents' fears. You also find young people who are both more skeptical and more entrepreneurial than their parents were at the same age. They've grown up amid shocks, financial, epidemiological, political, and learned to build Plan B by reflex. When they get support, mentors, apprenticeships, community college that doesn't bankrupt them, they rise fast. When they don't, they disappear into the low visibility parts of the economy that keep the country running but rarely open the next set of doors. I'm often asked whether America is more hopeful or more fearful right now. The honest answer is both. The country is a generator of second chances and a mill of anxieties. It's a place where a barista becomes a coder, where a refugee becomes a city council member, where a laid-off worker becomes a small business owner. It's also a place where a medical bill can derail a year, where a rent hike can erase a decade of neighborhood memory. Broken bus schedule can cost a job. The promise hasn't expired, but it does require maintenance of infrastructure, yes, and also of our habits of attention and empathy. What would make American society healthier, in my view? Start with more homes where the jobs are and fewer barriers to building them. Invest in the boring brilliance of public health and local journalism. Treat immigration as a national asset to be managed, not a panic button to be pounded. Teach kids and adults how to navigate information as if their civic life depended on it, because it does. Keep making public spaces where strangers can become neighbors without needing an app to mediate it. And remember that disagreement is a feature of a free society, not a bug. The task is not to eliminate it, but to conduct it without turning on one another. America is still a workshop more than a museum. It isn't finished, and it never will be. That's the point. Its greatness isn't the absence of problems, it's the recurring, sometimes exasperating, sometimes breathtaking capacity to fix them in public. The work is uneven and will always be, because the country is large and contradictory and free. But if you listen past the noise, you can hear it, the sound of people making room for each other, the hum of society doing the slow magic of becoming.